Hi and welcome to another class of English with Stuart. Today we're going to look at phrasal verbs. Do you ever feel like you don't understand phrasal verbs? Well, if you watch today's video until the end, you're going to understand a few basic phrasal verbs. Today we're going to look at the phrasal verbs put on, take off, put in, take out, put off, pick up, and drop off. Now, let's start. Okay, the very first phrasal verb today is the phrasal verb put on, and it's possibly one of the easiest phrasal verbs in English. It is basically put on something. So put being the verb to set, to put in English, which can also mean to place or position something in a location. And you're putting it on something. So I can put my telephone on the table. I can put my coat on my body. Now, the opposite action, you would think and you would imagine that would keep the same verb, that we would be using the verb put with a different preposition. The preposition on for put on, you would imagine put off. But this is the problem with phrasal verbs, they are confusing. We keep the preposition off for the opposite of on, because off is the opposite of on, but the verb itself changes and it becomes take. So to take off, to remove, to take the telephone off the table, to take my jumper off. And then we have to put in. Now to put in is, again, to position something inside. Remember the preposition in English is very much inside something. So we put in. We do have a formal verb for this in English, and you could use the verb to insert. That is effectively to put in. Now the opposite of to put in, well, it's a bit like put on. The opposite of put on is take off. The opposite of put in is take out. Take out. I need to take out the chicken from the freezer that I put in the freezer last week for tonight's dinner. Or, for example, I need to take out the money that I put in the bank last week. To take out. And the formal verb for that is to remove. The next phrasal verb on our list is one that I'm going to share with you because when we looked at put on, to put your clothes on, the immediate reaction would be put off is the opposite, which of course it's not. Put off, in fact, is something very different. I need to put off the meeting until next week. I need to postpone the meeting until next week. Now, typically we would use the phrasal verb here if we were talking about a coffee meeting, having a beer or a coffee with our friends. I would say to my friend, listen, I'm very sorry, but I need to put off our meeting or a get together, because we use the term get together as an informal for meeting. I need to put off our get together until next week. Something has happened. But if we were in business, we'd probably use the verb postpone. I need to postpone the business meeting until next week. Now the rule with phrasal verbs is this: you need to put the complement pronoun in the middle between the verb and the preposition. This isn't with all phrasal verbs, but certainly with the ones that we're looking at today. For example, to take off your shoes is possible. To take your shoes off is also possible. But if we were to replace your shoes with the pronoun them, we would need to say to take them off. We couldn't say take off them. And this applies to most phrasal verbs, not all. It depends if it's a direct object, a direct complement. And today's phrasal verbs, we are using direct complements. Again, if I asked my friend by using the formal verb, could you remove your shoes please when you come into my house? My friend would probably look at me and say, why are you being so formal? Because that's the nature of phrasal verbs. We use them in general conversation, not in formal situations. Okay, the last two for today, we're going to look at to pick up and drop off. Now they're both opposite actions. To pick up is to pick something up. So for example, something that's on the floor, you're picking it in an upward direction. That's one meaning. The other meaning is to pick up people or objects from one place and move them to another. For example, I need to pick up my brother from the airport today, or I picked up my cousin from the station yesterday. And the opposite action here is to drop off. I need to drop off my parents at the doctor's this morning. So with pick up, we have a formal verb to collect, but with drop off, we don't. We could say, I need to take my parents to the doctor's, but it doesn't necessarily show that I am going to take them and then leave them at the doctor's. And that's the beauty of phrasal verbs. Sometimes phrasal verbs are more accurate in their explanation than a formal Latin-based verb. So I hope that helps, and look out for more videos about phrasal verbs coming very soon.